So, welcome to CodeCraft Academy.
My name is Shude.
My name is Shimon.
And I'm Ray.
We're a trio of sophomores at Lee High School, and we have over 7+ years of experience with Python. Now let's get to know you. In the chat, please type your experience with programming and your age so that we can get an idea of where to start. Or you guys can talk.
Either one. You can.
The mic is on. That would be more for.
And it's completely fine if you have no experience either, because we're going to start fresh and we're going to make sure that you get a decent knowledge by the end of this course.
Oh, good. What language do you know? Have you done like code.org and whatever? Oh, JavaScript. Nice.
Very cool.
So how much knowledge do you have of JavaScript?
Like, have you made like any games or whatever? Or have you done simple stuff? Okay, that's
Well,
fine.
we're going to do that this year.
Yeah,
So
this course you're gonna make some games. Hopefully that's fun.
it's going to be
And
fun.
Sachin, that's fine. You don't need to have any experience. You'll be starting fresh from the beginning, so it's okay. Yeah.
All right. Activity 1, sign up for Replit. So please go into your browser and type in replit.com. So as you guys can see, go into your Google and type in replit.com. We're here. And then click on sign up.
Replit is important because it is basically the platform in which we write your code. And it'll automatically save all your code through cloud so that you can
Homework
access it.
assignments and everything will be done through Replit. So don't worry, there's not gonna be that. It's gonna be all fun. Like it's gonna be making games and whatever, and then you'll have a lot of fun. Of course, yeah.
So in the next step, after you selected your Google account, put down all of the things that apply to you. So do you have any software creation experience? And you type in the one that you have. So is Sonal, you have a beginner amount of experience with JavaScript, right? So you'll select beginner. And Sachin, you have none, so just select none. And for
Okay.
how do you plan to use Replit? Please select for personal use. So now we're going to talk about what is coding and what is Python. And firstly, we're going to talk about data types.
So what is coding and what is Python? Coding is basically just like creating instructions for a computer to follow. It does not understand. It only understands languages that it knows. So what we're doing is essentially learning its language. Also, the computer is not very smart. It has to be told a specific set of commands. Otherwise, it will raise errors because it thinks that everything that you write, every line of code that you write is something important. So it will not, as you can call it does not have intelligence. So you have to tell exactly what it does.
However, the computer is really fast with what you want to do. So anything you type in, it'll be much faster than the human calculations that you would normally do. And some background on the computer. Computer comes from the root compute, and then so compute means to calculate or solve. You've all heard of a calculator, right? So if the root is compute, that means a computer is basically a calculator. Just like a calculator, the computer can't do anything on its own, right? You have to enter everything that you want in the calculator for it to perform the calculations. And it's much faster than a human. A computer works the exact same way, except the way you input that information is through a language. And one of the languages we're learning in this course is Python.
What is Python? Python is one of the coding languages that the computer understands. It's one of the most versatile languages, and there's many things that you could do with it. So everything from games to a lot of the websites that you're on, as well as most of like ChatGPT, like which is a pretty big thing now. All of these machine learning things also use Python. But in our course, what we're going to teach you simple games, and those knowledge that you learned from our class can be built upon to learn these more complex topics. So basically, in our class, by presumably about December or January, you'd be able to create a entire Hangman game, which is pretty cool, as well as a tic-tac-toe game. And by the end of the course, you'll probably be able to make an entire rocket ship animation, like a person boarding onto the rocket ship and then flying off into space through Python. And Python is used by companies all over the world, from Google to PBS to NASA and even the Library of Congress. Python is one of the easiest languages to understand, which is why so many people use it. And I'm 100% sure you guys can learn it too. And now it's time for the fun stuff. So to write your first program in Replit, first go to Replit and press on the Create Repo button.
On the top left hand corner.
All right, the most basic command in Python is the print command. And so you guys just print hello world. And that's your first line of coding. And the print.
Where you want to go?
Yeah, sure. This is just one of the built-in commands in Python. So besides print, there are also a lot of other commands. But this one, the print, allows you to put text on the screen. And it's used for a very wide variety of applications, from testing your code to making games, text-based games, to printing out valuable information that can tell you what is exactly going on with your code. So it has a wide variety of uses, and it's
this command is going to be extremely important in the game we're going to be making this week. So
also remember to have the parentheses. That's very important.
Parentheses and quotation marks. Both of them are very important. We'll explain why in the next two slides.
You might be asking, why do we need the quotation marks around hello world? So just like many other languages, in Python there are things called data types. So the quotation marks are what tells the computer what type of data type it is. In this case, the data type is called a string.
On the next slide, we'll be covering what all these
We'll
data
be
types.
covering what a string is and many other data types. There are three main data types in coding. There's the strings, which is just a collection of letters, numbers, and symbols that we see on the keyboard. For example, hello world, 123. Any symbol you put on from your keyboard, it can all print out.
Keep in mind, strings have to be inside quotation marks, like all the time, no exceptions.
Moving on to booleans, they are true or false values. To implement it in Python, you need to remember that they don't need quotation marks, but rather you have to capitalize the T in true and the F in false when you use it.
It's a standard true or false. That's all a boolean is. Just remember it like that.
Yeah, like an example would be if I were to ask you your question, like, what did you eat pizza today, right? You'd have one answer, you'd have another answer, like a yes no problem. Like if you had pizza, did you have pizza? That could either be true or it could be false. So there's only two values that it could be used in, which is why it's very important in coding. As for example, if you want to validate if a user signed up for something, right? You could either, if they didn't sign up, it's false, right? But if they signed up for something, that's true. So that's just the real world example of where you would use booleans in Python. And the next data type is integers, which Rude.
And integers are any numerical value, like 4, 5, 2.3. All of these are considered integers. There are subcategories on integers that are called floats. which is the decimal points or fractions. But as an integer, if you know, is just a number. So any number on your keyboard would be an integer, including the tens, hundreds, thousands, whatever, any number.
Yep. And in today's class, we'll be focusing mainly on strings. So what is a string? A string is a combination of letters or numbers, but they all have to be inside of the quotation mark. So think of it like beads on like a necklace, for example, right? There's like one big yarn, right, for the necklace, and inside of it, there's so many beads. They could be lettered, and for in our example, they could be many different colors, right? They could be green, they could be red. So in our example, they could be like letters or they could be numbers, they could be symbols, but they're all interconnected with a yarn, right? Which is to tie it up. So in our case, in the string, all of these beads, you may call it, have to be surrounded by quotation marks to wrap around the entire necklace. And just like a necklace, you can have as many amount of beads as you want, depending on the size of the yarn, right? And yeah. And we can also concatenate two or more strings together to create a big string. And Ray, you might want to explain
Yeah.
this.
This is done using the plus operand. If you're wondering what an operand is, we'll get more into that later. But for now, what we need to know is the plus operand is to concatenate or add two things. So you could add two strings together. You could use a plus sign to add two integers together. But in this case, the hello world will just concatenate the two strings together to form hello world.
And you
Art,
see that there's no spaces when you put the plus. There's no spaces between the two words that you wanted to concatenate. And so if you want a space between them, there's two ways you can approach it. So in place of the plus, in Python they allow you to put a comma, which creates a space between, as you can see in the second screenshot. And if there's another way, if you add a space to the beginning of the second string, then it will automatically concatenate the space as well. So then you would end up with the same result. Remember that both of these work. So if you don't understand any of this, please let us know again. Like, we don't want to be rushing you or making it hard to understand, right? So
um, I think you guys should try these string
yes,
concatenations
yeah,
out right now, and you can see like the
it would be,
difference
yeah,
between each.
it would be beneficial, yeah.
So please let us know if you guys have some issue with this. And maybe instead of using hello world, you might want to use something else like hello Sachin or hello Sanjana. You know what I
Like,
mean?
or my name is comma what,
Yep.
yeah, right. So try those.
All right, so the next type, data type is input and output, and this is really important for well Python in general, but also especially for our final homework that we're gonna have. So take notes over here. So the input is sending data into the computer, and the output is what the computer displays from the input. And an example would be for an input value, right? So your friend is asking you, what did you have for lunch, right? So that is being inputted into your brain, like you can assume that. And the output would be your response, right? So it'd be like, oh, I had pizza. So, and then the person could take that and then they could output that value that you got from the input that the person got. So as this is a coding example, which should be input, what did you have for lunch? And then print, wow, that sounds delicious. So we got the input, which was the pizza, right? And the output was, that sounds delicious.
Here you wait, go back. So here, just to clarify, the pizza is what you type in. When you use the input function, it lets you type in your console, what you want to type, and then once you click enter, based on your results, it could print something or print something else. And we'll get into how to do that stuff later. For now, this is the simple thing that we need to learn.
Yeah,
Here,
and you can even concatenate the information that you got. So, for example, if you typed in, you got the input as pizza, right? So you can use the input value that you got from the computer, and you can use that to change your output. So Ray can demonstrate that on his Replit right now.
as you can see, I forgot to mention, but these are variables.
That will
It's
be on
just
the next slide.
that'll be on the next slide.
We'll
But it's important for this example because it allows you to store data. But that's like the most basic explanation. So I set answer one as input. What did you have for lunch? And as you can see, if I run it, it asks me to type here. There's a box to type. Click by pizza, and I press enter. And I told the computer to print out what I wrote, and as you can see, it printed out pizza. And you can do cool things with that. For example, you could also print wow pizza or whatever answer you got.
see now. Look, this the concept of
Sound,
concatenation. So
sound
everything comes
delicious.
together in what we're teaching, and this will all
So,
help you build your game at the end.
yep,
As you can see, I added
everything.
the space here too.
Yeah.
But you could also do this, as shown in the example earlier. Oh, pizza sounds delicious.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on that? Well, if not, let's go on to the next slide.
Or actually, can I add one more thing?
Oh yeah, of course.
I wanted to tell or add in that you don't have to use pizza every time. As you can see, I picked in pizza, but you can do something else like stir fried noodles. Enter. Wow, stir fried noodles sounds delicious. So this
Yeah.
is like what's good because usually when you get input from the users, it's not going to be the same input every single time. So it's very good for especially for games since you always want to get input from the user.
Also, guys,
Yeah.
if the meeting ends, please join back because I'm not sure. It says there's a time limit for the meeting. We'll fix that for next time, but yeah, if it turns off, then please join back. We'll start it up again.
Yeah, and input and output, this is like one of the most important things in uh, coding in general because it's used in everything. Like for example, even when you sign up to a website, right? Like we signed up to Replit, right? You're giving the computer input into their software, right? You're inputting your name, you're inputting your password, you're inputting your login, right? And then that allows the computer to demonstrate an output. It outputs you to a different screen, right? So this input and output is one of the most important things in Python in general. And everything in Python just ties together, like Rude and Ray have previously explained. So please remember to know about this. And the next is variables, which Rude would like to explain.
Right. So as Ray showed, in coding, you can assign values to variables to store them in the computer, and these variables can be used anywhere in your code. There are some exceptions that we'll talk about later, but for now, we assume that variables can be used in anywhere in your code. And you can assign anything to these variables. You can assign a string, you can assign an integer, you can assign an input, you can assign a boolean. All the stuff that we learned about, you can assign any of those to variables. Okay? So just like Ray showed, you can assign a variable to an input, and then once you type in your input, it'll save your input in the variable, and then you can use it anywhere in your code. Even if I put my input equals input on line 1, right? Even if I went all the way down to line 100 and I said print my input, it would still work. As long as you don't change the variable again. And in the example, you see, hello, what is your name? My name is Hude. So I would input user input Hude. Then the variable that I inputted printed Hude. Same example that Ray showed.
Yeah, and just like Ray and Rude have explained right now, it doesn't have to be Rude. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be Rude. I could type in my name. I could say Shivang. I could type in your name. I could say Sachin, or I could say Sanjana. You know what I mean? So it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a specific amount, which is why input, again, is very important. And yeah, now we're basically done with everything that we needed to learn in this class.
Oh,
Oh yeah, of
wait.
course.
What's your question?
Oh, what's your question?
Can there be two variables in one code?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
there
make
could be.
any number of variables. You can make 100 variables, but all of them have to be stored in different values. So you can say my input one, my input two, or
Or
like
they can be the same value, but you can make as many variables as you like.
yeah,
Like for
and
Yeah,
example, you can have variable one and variable two. It can both be equal to one, but
and
usually
also
that's
there's one important thing. You can name your variable absolutely anything. It doesn't have. It can be absolutely anything. Any
as
combination
long
of numbers, strings,
as long as you
numbers,
don't.
letters. Yeah.
Also,
I,
to add on to that, the variable names actually do matter in some very specific cases. Like for example, if you put true as a variable,
Oh
then that
yeah.
wouldn't work.
There are some
So
exceptions. Yeah.
some exceptions, but for the most part, don't worry about it. If you ever encounter this error, just simply change the name to something else, and it should work.
yeah, relating this to a more real world topic, right? We could see this as there. You can have your own classmates. Like my sister herself is also 10, right? But you're also 10. So, but I could have my sister's name as the 10 value, and I could also have another variable, which would be you as the 10 value, right? So that shows how you can have multiple different um,
Variables with the same
variables
value. Yeah.
that with the same value. But to create this even more realistically, there could be like to our login example, right? Like a login could have multiple different values because you're not the only person who's logging into a website, right? There are millions of people that are logging into a website. So there has to be millions of different data because it'd be kind of it won't make sense to have the same password variable for each person. You know what I mean? So I think it's so, which is why variables could have any amount of data, and they could have
All
infinite amount of people.
all right. So now for the homework, we'll explain how to do it a little bit. So you'll be coding a game called Mad Libs. I'm sure you guys have heard of this before because it's pretty popular. So it's like a game where you enter adjectives, nouns, verbs, adverbs, anything, right? Or like any other nouns like room in a house, like those type of stuff, and using those elements to create a story. This, as you can see, there's already a template, right? So you're going to be creating this template, and there will be blanks like user input blanks that you must fill. This is using all the concepts that we learned in this class: print statements, inputs, concatenation. Those three are the big ones that you have to remember. And you have to remember how to use strings effectively to make this story. So now Ray will explain the sim. Actually, I'm gonna I might
Actually,
need to
yeah, I could
explain.
show it on my screen like a very short example.
Oh, okay. You already have one.
Yeah, it shows on the slides, but I can give you an example of how you can like add a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
So like here you see noun one equals input enter a noun, and then print I went to concatenation noun one. Correct. So that's something how you do it. Except your story would be much longer. Your print statement would include a lot of concatenation with all your inputs. And remember, you can name these anything like noun one, noun two, noun three, adverb one, adjective one, anything, right? Ray's choosing some longer names, but it's okay.
Yeah, and just to answer your question again, over here you can see that there's two variables being used, and they're having different datas. So yeah,
Yeah.
You
So
need a
look
print
at
command.
Ray's screen just for clarification. Ray, you don't need the space.
Oh yeah, because I used a comma, so you don't have to use the space.
Yeah, that you can either use if you want to use plus, you're gonna have to put the space after in the second quotation mark. But if you can use comma, that's great because it's much easier to use.
Or should you use a comma? User
Okay, so you see in Ray's code now, he has you went to user input for lunch and used user input 2 to eat user input 3. That's the concatenation that we learned. So the first thing that's going to happen is that they're going to ask you for the input. First thing that Ray sees is give me a location. So he types some restaurant, right? And then he gives an item and he gives a food. See, now
And you can see.
it concatenated your restaurant, it concatenated your item, and it also concatenated your burrito.
Yeah, the
Right.
example I gave here was very like primeval, like very rough, so it's not very refined.
So
And as you see, the
you would
sentences
make your
follow.
story a lot more detailed, and you wouldn't say if you want to do user input 1, user input 2, you don't need to do that. You can just say like noun 1, adjective 1, or like abbreviate the
Location.
adjective or whatever you want. So it can be as short as possible. But
Just
don't
make
make
sure
it
the
just like a
variable
number.
is like relating to what you're putting in. Like, don't just name in, like, for example, if you're asking for a location, don't put in food as the variable name. You should use it to your advantage to help you write your code.
Code should always
Yeah.
be organized, so you should make sure that you're organized.
But you don't need to worry too much about that right now. Just focus on trying to concatenate the strings and using variables.
Keep in mind, you guys are gonna have like much more inputs and a lot bigger print statement. You're gonna have so many more concatenations.
Okay.
All right,
Ray, can you stop sharing your screen?
Ray.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and that was the simple example we went about. And please try to be as creative as possible. And because next class we're gonna have a competition to see who wrote the best story, and that's gonna be for full points. And yeah, that's it for our class today. So keep coding.
Okay, does
Thank
everyone
you.
understand the homework assignment, or do you have any confusion? Because the meeting is about to end, and then if you have any questions, please join back because that's gonna be a problem if you don't know. I understand. Do you understand the homework assignment? Do you think you can do it? Because we covered all the concepts this class. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Great.
So you guys both understood?
So in Google Classroom, we posted the assignment. So once you're done, give us the Replit link. Oh wait, we should show them how to share the Replit. Do that quickly. Ray. Okay, Shivang, you should.
Sorry, my mic was muted.
Yeah.
I'll show you right now.
Okay.
Here's my screen. Right? In order to share it,
You just need to go to invite on the top right, and then you just at the bottom it says private join link, and you toggle that, and then you copy the join link. And then in the
please
Google Classroom, there's an assignment. You guys probably know how to use Google Classroom already. So just post that link in Google Classroom, and then you're good to go. And then we'll check your code and give you a grade. All right?
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Right.
Nice class.
Right.
Nice to meet you
Thank
guys.
you for listening to us, and that was basically it. So if there's no more questions, you guys are free to leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
have a good day, guys. Good job.
Have a great
Goodbye.
day.
Bye.